Wage gaps here in Canada have narrowed over the decades, but there's still a long way to go. Several U.S. states have introduced pay transparency laws, with New York City the latest to follow. And some experts here believe this country should be paying close attention.
We had a big improvement after the women's liberation movement. So 70s and 80s into the early 90s, big improvement. And it has been stalemated literally for the last 20 or so years.
Women working full-time in Canada are making about 89 cents to every dollar that men make. And Professor Sarah Kaplan, who specializes in gender and the economy, says the gaps are much wider when you start breaking down the demographics.
There's big differences when you start to look at, Black women, Latina women, people with disabilities, that, those gaps are larger than the average that we say of, say, 88 cents.
As of last week, every employer in New York City is now required to post the minimum and maximum salary for a particular role when listed on internal job boards and external sites like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and Indeed. And Kaplan says data out of Colorado shows that transparency is benefiting job seekers.
What it did was sort of force employers to compete more, and because they were competing more, they had to raise the salary so that they could attract workers. So this gives people more ability to know, like, if they give me a job offer, oh, did they give me the way lowest on the range, or did they give me the highest on the range? And so it gives you a lot more information in order to be able to negotiate.
And California's pay transparency law takes it a step further by requiring employers with more than 100 workers to also show their median gender and racial pay gaps, a first in the U.S.
As an employment lawyer, I often deal with pay equity issues and pay equity complaints.
Manzina Sheikh specializes in labor and human rights litigation. She says Canada has great legislation to help employees battle workplace discrimination, but the issues are complex.
I'm dealing with a case right now, for instance, where, my female client has complained about a pay equity issue and has also layered with that a reprisal complaint. So saying that, look, as soon as I raised a pay equity issue, I received my raise, but, I was ostracized within the workplace and ultimately pushed out.
In 2021, Ottawa's Pay Equity Act came into play, which requires federally regulated employers to identify and correct pay disparities. But that only covers about 6% of the workforce. Several provinces have their own legislation, although not as hard-hitting as some of the laws south of the border.
Will this be like the magic wand that we wave and close the wage gap? No. Is it a helpful step along with many other steps that are going to be taken? Yes, I think it is. But we're not going to close the wage gap until we close the care gap. And that's, until we get more equal sharing of care at home, we'll never close the wage gap.
Shauna Hunt, City News.